أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يمحق الله الربا ويربي الصدقات والله لا يحب كل كفار أثيم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم مؤمنين فإن لم تفعلوا فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله وإن تبتم فلكم رؤوس أموالكم لا تظلمون ولا تظلمون. وإن كان ذو عسرة فنظرة إلى ميسرة وأن تصدقوا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. واتقوا يوما ترجعون فيه إلى الله ثم توفى كل نفس ما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون.
So, as we are talking about economy and the principles of economy, and as we know that what we have coming from the Islamic tradition is one obligation and one prohibition when it comes to means within economy, and I will come to this because they are both mentioned in this excerpt from the Qur'an, and there's some verses here. Two things that should be known when it comes to this verse. We know that this is the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah is the longest surah in the Qur'an, and is the first one to be revealed in Medina, when the Prophet ﷺ arrived and settled. What we know very often when we come to the Prophet's life ﷺ, we speak about two or three things that he did when he arrived in Medina. And of course, what we know is that the first thing that he did is building mosques. This is what he did. What is less known and less discussed is, in fact, that when he came, he did the second thing that he did is known, but the scope of what he did was not known, or not known enough. Al-Mu'akha, which is this link based on brotherhood between Al-Muhajirun and Al-Ansar, is known, and this was in fact to help the Muhajirun that were arriving, having left everything in Mecca, is to find a place where they can live, sharing the space and activities with the people, and having this sense of belonging to the religious community, which was the new religious community in Medina. But the Prophet ﷺ also started to change the rules in the market, which in fact was the starting point of dealing with the economic side of the equation, which in fact, if you get the sense that anything which has to do with the state, that was to become the state, what we call the state of Medina, was not only based on the state structure or something which was him being the leaders. It has to do with the mosque, as to إِذَا مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Those where they are settled, where they are protected, the first thing that they do, that they pray, and the center is the mosque. The second thing which is important is this relationship, which is the social link, the social dynamic. and then the financial one, which is how to deal. And one of the things that were very important in al-mu'akha was sharing the goods, and at the same time helping the people, the newcomers, the muhajirun, to be involved in the market, and trying to get something which was much more based on justice and equity in the transactions. So Omar Shapra, who wrote about Islamic economy, Islamic finance, dealt with this, as well as Sheikh al-Qardawi as well, when they were talking about Fiqh al-Shura. I don't know if you know this book, which is not Fiqh al-Shura, Fiqh al-Zakat. Fiqh al-Zakat, he wrote a very important book, and he's also dealing with this. And you have 2 or 3 biographies of the Prophet ﷺ explaining how this was important. But as a matter of principle, to understand that anything which has to do with the state power has to do with the economic system. And this is linked with or without the state, because we still can discuss the situation in Medina. Was it a state per se, or was it a kind of clanic system and with tribes? But with the figure of the Prophet ﷺ and his role, it was quite clear that he had the leadership. Why I'm saying this is that while we are talking about this surah was revealed exactly at the beginning of them settling down in Medina. And at the end of this very long surah, we have something which is quite clear as to the details, is how do you have to do things. So the last thing that is not here, the longest ayah in the Qur'an is the ayah about that it's about transaction. It's about you have to write down everything, which is the one that is coming afterward. But the point here is to get it, to understand that the first things that we have in Surah Al-Baqarah, everything that we have has to do with prohibitions, obligations, understanding the new context, which is completely different from Mecca. And in Medina you have something which has to do with very important rules based on the way you have to deal with money. And the way you are going to deal with other people, with yourself, with the state, with authority, with power. You can't talk about settling down and trying now to deal with power, you being in charge, if you don't get with a clear understanding of money, which sometimes is forgotten in the whole process. When you deal with power, state power, or anything which has to do with politics, you do with economics. This is something which is from the very beginning. You have it here in this, and the point are also made from the very beginning. So what I wanted just to say is the connection between this verse and the first year, the first months in Medina, the relationship between anything which has to do with power and the economic system, and the clear obligations that are coming with the Islamic ethical framework, which has to do with the way you deal with power, the way you deal with money, and the way you deal with people. It's all connected. So we can't just. So this is what, when we talk about the comprehensiveness, shumuliyya, the comprehensiveness of Islam, it has to do with this. It's not only to understand that Islam is talking about everything. It's to understand that everything is connected. Don't take it the other way. Very often you say Islam is about everything, because in fact the problem is that everything is linked before Islam is talking about everything. So the people, what we have today in the West is this kind of fragmentation of knowledge. It's as if we have knowledge here. So this disconnect that we have in anything which has to do with knowledge is the way you look at the world, and then you come with a fragmented ethical framework, which is exactly the other way around. It's not Islam that is coming with a comprehensive understanding. It's the world is everything is connected. So when you talk about money and you think that this is disconnected from politics and this is disconnected from social dynamic, this is the wrong way of dealing with it. And so this is why anything which has to do with science, anything which has to do with economy or human sciences, there is an ideology behind. tell me how you categorize science, and I will know which ideology you have behind. So the fact that Islam talks about everything is natural because everything is connected. And if we look at it the other way wrong, we are making an ideological mistake, which is the way we look at the world. You understand my point? Which is sometimes our discourse on this, responding to the West, is to say, no, we are connecting everything. It's not that we are connecting everything. We should maybe put the argument the other way around. Is it not that everything is connected when it comes? You understand? It's the way you look at the world before looking at Islam. Because if we look at Islam first, we are expressing something which is a specific view, an alien view to the West, not challenging the ideology, but challenging just a perception. And I think it's more than a perception, is very much an understanding of the world. So we start with the first verse here that we have. It's the 276. And it is said, يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. If you read this, literally it means that Muhammad Asad gives the translation, God deprives usurious gains for all blessing. In fact, يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى, there is not something which has to do with blessing here. It's just, this is going to be removed, erased, straight away. Literally, this is what it means. وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ, this will be, he will increase as-sadaqat. And in fact, the literal understanding here, it's important because in the translation there is already an interpretation that the blessing will go with the sadaqat and there will be no blessing in riba. Literally, it's not exactly what is said here in the Qur'an. And this is why it's important to come back to the literal meaning of this, which in fact there is two things. When you take from a riba, Allah is saying this is going to be removed. And when you give with the sadaqah, this will increase what you have. And in fact, there is the literal meaning and the spiritual understanding, the spiritual dimension. The literal is I take riba and I give sadaqah. The spiritual is I will get with sadaqat and I was not going to have anything with riba. It's exactly the same as in Surah Ar-Rahman, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. There is the physical thing that you see and the spiritual meaning that you don't see. Here it's exactly the same. The physical is that you will get riba. The spiritual, you will get nothing. It's going to be removed from anything which has to do with Allah, a blessing. On the other side, so you will get money, no blessing. And you will give with sadaqat and you will get blessing. So the spiritual meaning is exactly the opposite of the physical. And this means what? That behind anything which has to do with money, you have to question the goals, the purposes. And this is one of the main criticisms that I may have sometimes with what is happening with Islamic economy, is that we want to change the means, but we want to do the same profit, to get the same profit, which is exactly the opposite of this verse. The verse is, it's not that. You need to get. What do you want? What I am saying is that this verse, starting this discussion, is in fact showing that we need to get it right. What are your purposes? What are your goals? Getting the blessing, so in fact, if apparently you think that you are losing money by giving sadaqat, in fact you are gaining. And it's another salary, something which is the spiritual dimension here. While if you think that you are getting the physical dimension of riba, in fact you are losing everything. So in spiritual terms, that's essential because it's the whole backdrop of anything which has to do with what do you want in fact. If you want just to change the means to get the same physical goals, that's not going to work. So I sometimes have a problem with Islamic economy because it's let us get the same profit and change the means. Well, it's not the same profit. You can't get that. In Islam, it's not the same profit. You have another understanding. And then just after the whole philosophy, which is not the philosophy, the spiritual viewpoint that you have on things. This verse is about the spiritual viewpoint. That you understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, I will give when you give, and you will lose when you gain in the halal way. In the haram way, you will lose everything. This is going to yamhaqu, which is completely removing and destroying here. And then you come just after this with something which, once again, it's important in our understanding of Islam. It's the vision and then the pillars. Look at this, just after this. Inna alladhina amanu. This is, amanu means you understand the first verse. Okay, you get this. You amanu means you understand Allah yamhaqu al-riba. That you understand it. Amanu wa amilu salihat. And then this is the understanding, the way you behave. And then you have the pillars. وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. And this is where the first prohibition is no riba. The first obligation is zakat, after your understanding, which is believing in God, doing good, praying, and giving the zakat. The zakat is, so the connection here between our understanding, our everything which has to do with our viewpoint, our understanding of the world, is based on the presence of Allah. It's doing good deeds for His sake. And then the pillars, which is aqamu salah, and I told you about the other verse, the people who, when they settled on earth, aqamu salah, which is the first thing that they are doing is this link to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa atawu zakat, which is once again an obligation. Everything that is based, when it comes to Islamic economy, is based on these two things: prohibition of riba and imposition of zakat. And both have to do with an ideology. No usury means you cannot get money with money. And the second thing is, when you get money, you will know and you will understand that poor have rights on the money you have. So it's something which has to do with the whole philosophy of life, which is ask the first question on what are your objectives. Second, understand that money, it's coming out of activities and not out of money. It's not money for money. And second is poor people have rights. And this is why I don't, my translation of zakat from a long time ago, and I was discussing this with Kamsala, is a social purifying tax. The three dimension. Social, because it has to do with the social justice. Purifying, because it has to do with purification. And tax, because it's an obligation. So these are the three dimensions that we have. So something that was built out of our understanding of what alms or charity is in the Christian context has nothing to do with this. This is not charity. Sadaqat is charity. Zakat is a purifying tax. Is the way through the way you purify your goods through the tax that you have to pay. So here it's first the philosophy. Ask yourself what are your goals, understanding that you can have less and be more, which is the very understanding of, and you can have more and be less in spiritual terms. Second is understanding what it means to be with Allah. It's amanu billah wa amilus وعملوا الصالحات, which is known, and then أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة لهم أجرهم. Look at this, أجرهم. الأجر is the reward, which is once again something which has to do with the whole philosophy when it comes to money. What are you talking about? The reward of what? What is the profit? The ultimate profit is that you will get this with Allah. ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون, which is once again something which is no fear, no sadness, whatever is the situation is this. What does it mean, in fact, at the end of the day, when you look at this, is when it is said, لا خوف ولا يحزنون. لا خوف عليهم. So they are not going, no fear. ولا هم يحزنون. They won't be sad. What does it mean, in fact? It means that be careful about the ultimate security is not money. The ultimate security is not having. The ultimate security is him. And this is where don't be scared of this, because what also was important in all this situation is that you think that less money is less security. No, it's deeper faith, it's more security. It's not the money. It's not. So once again, you can see here repeatedly through the prohibition and through the obligation and through, there is an understanding of what life is and what is this relationship with Allah. So you have to put this relationship to money, to economy, to finance within this overall vision. Don't disconnect that. It's not only about means, it's about means within the vision. The problem that we have today is sometimes we talk about means, but we are not sure about the vision. So I don't know if you understand what I mean here. If you look at the way the verses are structured, you can get this everywhere. It's all connected with why do we speak about fear and khawf and huzn when you are talking about money? Why now? Why it is said now? Because this has to do with a sense of security. And very often we are connecting money with security, which is once again, it's with God that you will have, with Allah that you will have this security. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا. So once again, this is now an obligation, which is in fact a prohibition. You have to stop. You have to stop using a riba, which is once again one of the steps that the Prophet ﷺ, it's step by step. You know that for alcohol, I don't have all the verses here, but the prohibition of alcohol is 3 verses. The prohibition of riba is 4. Meaning, in fact, that once again, there is a dynamic within the fiqh, within the rules, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leading the community towards something. But as we need to understand, leading or educating the community towards a specific goal means that, yes, this has to be done in a very specific period of time. And while he was here, it took 23 years for the revelation to come. But when he passed away, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, does it, for example, did it mean that slavery was stopped? No. The process of abolition was there. We have to stop. We understood this. As Muslims, we know that Islam is against slavery. We understand that there was a process. So it's 23 years to get the message and history to change. When it comes to economy, it's exactly the same. Is 4 revelations to understand that we need to go towards a movement and to try to change the economic system. It starts with 3 things that you need to understand. The overall vision, 1 obligation, which is zakat, 1 prohibition, no riba. Riba is the whole system, and within it you have the means. And in fact, in zakat, you have the very essence of why we are against riba. In zakat, there is the right of the poor, which means that you have, it's exactly the essence of you cannot make money with money, because the goal of your life, it's not money. So when you understand the very philosophy of zakat as an obligation, you understand why we cannot have something which is an Islamic capitalism, for example, or a capitalist system, or thinking that money could make money. Because this is where we understand the whole link. So if you come to this, وَاتَّقُوا وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ, meaning that it's a process. Now, you were in something that is considered by Islam as haram. Now, step by step, you go towards something which is dharu. So what you have now, out of riba, you have to stop. In other verses, we also have what you got before, you keep it. Now you are not going to take more than that. So meaning, غَفَرَ اللَّهُ عَمَّا سَلَفَ, God is is forgive what was in the past, but now, for now, you have to stop. So it's a gradual education that we need, and especially when it comes to money. There are many things that we need to understand when it comes to how do you deal with a human being in collective psychology. For example, alcohol, if you want to stop, you can't just come and say stop. Slavery, it's a process. Economy, it's a process. As Muslims, the only fact that Allah is coming with an eternal message within history, and He came with full revelations within history, means that this is Sunnatullah. When Allah is dealing with Sunan al-Insan, which is the way He deals with human beings have to be dealt with through time, through steps, and it's very essential here. And especially when it comes to social dynamics and understanding of what life is. And then there is this big verse, which is essential here, which is linking a riba. If you don't stop doing this, what is going to happen? فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you're not going to do this, if you're not going to stop a riba, this is a war against God and the Messenger. So harb meaning it's you are at war with God. Meaning what? Meaning, in fact, if you don't agree, if you don't get the very deep philosophy, understanding, ideology, essence of this message, which is to tell you that you need to avoid interest and usury. It means that you are promoting a model, a system, which is exactly against God's will. This is harb. So it's deep. It's something which is not, you don't find something like this elsewhere in the Qur'an. Because here it's the system. It's the system. It's in fact behind the economic system, there is a way you deal with Allah and a philosophy of life. In fact, in economy, there is a concept of life and death. It was not possible to think about this, but now we know that this economic system, it's the philosophy of life and death, now killing 150,000 people per day out of this economic system. It's war. It's war against humanity. And this, in fact, it's coming from the economic system. While it was not perceived at that time as so connected, now we know it's global. So economy is global and it's connected to everything, because behind us, if you look at the reality of it, there is a philosophy of human being behind the economic system, because all the people who are killed are poor people, black people, southern people, southern countries. It's just the people who have power are just looking at people from other cultures, other religions, they are not part of their understanding. So there is behind this something which is the global economy is not void from any ideological or philosophy of life. So there is a concept of life here. Even the concept of the free market, there is an understanding of what freedom is and what free is and what liberal is even here. But here you have something which is فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. So this is why, for example, when I was dealing with this and when I wrote the book Radical Reform, I was saying, the old concept that we have with scholars saying Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam, in fact, when they were talking about the 4 principles that are helping us to define Dar al-Islam, it's ownership of the land, the legal system, the ruler, and the majority are Muslims. Okay? Daraqutni, he gave 4 features. He said, this is Dar al-Islam. So on the other side, if you are a minority, the legislation is not Islamic, you will be in Dar al-Kufr or Dar al-Harb or whatever. And when you are not in security, which was the main conditions, the main condition Abu Hanifa was putting, or the Hanafi school when you are in security, meaning at that time you were in security, you were in majority. So we have 4 or 5, and then scholars came during this last century, saying we have to reassess this, and it might be that we are not in Dar al-Kufr, but we are in Dar al-Ahd, or we are in Dar al-Sulh, or in Dar al-Da'wah. For me today, I think that this categorization of 2 worlds is wrong. So I call the world Dar al-Shahada, where we bear witness to the truth, even in Muslim majority countries. But I came to this verse and say it might be that if we have now to deal with alam, in fact, the whole world is Dar al-Shahada, but the whole world is at war with alam al-Harb, which is the economic system. Alam al-Harb is the global economic system, is exactly the opposite of what Islam is asking us to promote. So this free market, I call it, I'm at war with the Alam al-Harb, which is not in geographical term, but in economic terms, is to transform this and say, where is, and based on this, because this is what Allah is telling us, that if you don't get that, if you don't get the understanding that you are at war with Him, you don't understand that it's very deep. It means that behind the economic system, which, by the way, was the intuition of the Marxist ideology. And I think that many people, they don't read Marx well, or they don't read him and Engels the right way, because he was right in saying something, that everything which has to do with politics, in fact, look at the economic equation behind it. And on this he is right. Even now, with what we were sold as the Arab Spring, that's nothing to do with politics and democracy. It has to do with economy and economic interest. So that's the point here, which is وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. Here it means that if now you come back to Islam, what you got in the past, it's going to be yours, but now you have to change your life, which once again is something which is very important here, which is the Islamic principle here is what you did without knowing. It's not there is no sense of guilt for this. That's okay, that's over. You did it, you didn't know. Now you have to change. This is something which is very powerful in anything which has to do with the educational process. Educational process, you say, okay, you didn't know. Okay, we are going to forget about that. Now you know. Which in Islam it's essential, is exactly the opposite of the original sin. The original sin, you didn't know, but you were a sinner anyway. In Islam, it's not like this. You didn't know, forgiven. Now you know, now it's your responsibility. But if you don't, so this is why you can understand in the other way. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. God, it's not asking us more than what we can, but be careful. As soon as you know, this is where the great responsibility is. So don't take the verse the wrong way. You know, it's your responsibility. You didn't? Okay. And this is what he did, and what the Prophet ﷺ did in his educational process. It was true with sins, it was true also with money, and then لا تظلمون ولا تظلمون, which is you are not going to be wrongly treated, and you are not going to be unjust. So وإن كان ذو عسرة فنظرة إلى ميسرة, which is the verse here about the situation. Once again, it's where is it here? If, however, the debtor is in strained circumstance, grant him a delay until a time of ease. Always, once again, the facility here in Islam is always to go for making things easy, which once again is part of our philosophy. Making things easy is when you didn't know, you are not responsible. But now if you are in a situation, try always to find a way where you are making things easy among you. And the last point here is where is this? وَإِن تَصَدَّقُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. So once again, this is here, once again, part of the whole philosophy of life when it comes to trying to find the right way to solve the problem. So you can see the contrast. When you know, you have to obey, if not, is al-harb. Now, in the way you deal with human being, just try to find the easiest way. So, once again, look at this. With yourself, it's very strict. With others, try to go step by step. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching the humanity, go step by step, but if you, as an individual, you get the message and now you are responsible, you have to stop. So, very strict with individuals, very strict with our awareness, with our consciousness. So, and then in the way you deal with people, it's always to be full of understanding, to make things easy, and to try to find a solution. And once again, if the saddaqo, if that you will get the money, the saddaqo is just give this money. Once again, if you remember the first verse, what you give, you don't lose. What you give, you don't lose. Which is once again. And then the last verse that we have today is وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Do you know that according to some scholars, this is the last verse that was revealed? In fact, not وَالْعَصْرِ No, it's not a. No. اليوم أكملت والعصر No. النصر, yes, that's it. النصر. So the great majority are of the opinion this is the last verse that was revealed. And then once again, this verse is saying something which is important in the whole understanding before coming to the dua that we have. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Once again, as much as we are talking about the reward coming from Allah, the very essence of this verse is, be careful. One day you will come back to Him. And then you are going to be questioned about what? Your deepest, your sincere intention in this life. One day you will come back. And to be questioned about the intention when it comes to money, when it comes to the way we deal with money, is something which is once again important here. ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ. Look at the terminology. كَسَبَتْ الْأَجْرِ. It's all having about kasaba. It's what you gain. It's all about you will know what you are going to gain, what is going to be your reward, what is going to be your salary, in fact. That's it. This is the true salary. And the true salary is to get your objectives right. It's to know what do you want out of this life. And then وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. There will be no injustice about your right, your true intention in the whole thing. So if you come with a comparative understanding of what you get with the riba, which is the money, what you are trying to get is more profit. When you come from the spirituality is what are your objective? Is that to get closer to Allah, to gain this blessing. Here is blessing, here is money. But be careful, here is not against money. It's blessing the way you look at money. The way you understand that there is something which is more important than money. It doesn't mean that money is not important, but it's not the ultimate goal. Here is the ultimate goal with no blessing. And when you have here, you think that you have more, and you don't see that blessings are missing. Here you understand that you have maybe less money, but more blessing. And at the end, ما كسبتم. ما كسبتم, it's what is the salary. Here, ما كسب means what you will come back to Allah, and you will know what is the true salary. So in fact, inductively, you have the very essence of life, which is one day you will come back to Allah to know what were your intention. And once again, you come to a complete philosophy of life, starting with your philosophy of death, which is at the end, blessings are important. Why? Tell me now, blessings are important. Why? Just because Allah? No, because I will come back to Him. In fact, blessing, the value of blessing has to do with the value of my death, my understanding of I'm coming back to Him. This is why it's important. If there was nothing about that, its blessing is not to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the value of death during life is our deep understanding that one day we'll come back to Him. And on this basis, we have to change our understanding of the goals, which is the goals of anything which has to do with money. Now, having said that and getting this overall picture here, if we look at what is happening today, and this will be my conclusion to open the discussion, in fact, is we understand here that the beginning and the end of this tafsir have to do with the philosophy of life. Okay, is the first, as we said, is our understanding that it's not in what you see, it's in what you understand. The reality of economy is not in what you see physically, it's what you understand, is what you will get. At the end, one day you will come back to Allah. So this is the beginning and this is the end of the tafsir. In between, there is a philosophy of life about what you are trying to do with الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and then the obligation وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ. So this obligation has to do once again with Allah, but with people. Zakah is the social purifying tax, is horizontal, is before God the duty that you have towards your fellow human beings and the poor people among you. So these are the obligations. So you can see the structure that the beginning and the end has to do with the way you understand life, and then what you have to do as the ethical behavior, the obligations that you have to do, and then step by step where you have the direction. And the direction is stop what you were doing and start a new life. Allah is going to forgive about what was the past, and now you have the obligation, and you know that if you don't do this, this is harb. You are at war, not against human beings, against the creator of human beings, which is the worst thing that you can get on earth. What does it mean once again? If you look at the priorities, if you want to change human beings, you have to deal with the economic system. And if you want to change the economic systems, you don't change the structure, you change the understanding. Niyyah, which is the intention, the objectives. What do you want to achieve? Which is very simple to say, but it's essential. Economy should serve human beings and not human beings serve economy. Which is very simple to say, but it's essential in anything that we have to do. And if Muslims should play a role in this, is to come with the right structure. Now, once again, with all this, the problem that we have now is we talk about Islamic economy, and very often we are structuring the whole discussion on two things: prohibition of usury and interest and speculation. On the other side is this obligation of zakat, which is something which is part of the whole thing. Add to this with the zakat is al-awqaf, is what is dealt with the state. But once again, these are means, and we need to challenge the very understanding of the very objectives of the economic systems. And the problem that I have with some is that they are so obsessed with the means that as we, remember when we're talking about environment, is to Islamize the means and to keep the same objectives, which in economy is just harb. You are going to get exactly the same. You cannot just change the means and try to get to have the same money. But what I want you to understand is that what I said with the blessings, on the spiritual side, it's not that we don't want money, that we are against money. It's in Islam, it's quite clear. It's not enough to be poor to be right. And it's not because you are rich that you are wrong or bad. That's wrong in Islam. We don't have this natural qualification in, for example, in the Christian tradition, coming from a very long time, you have this perception, because you are poor, because you are the last, you will be the first. There is nothing like this in Islam. Nothing. It's not enough to be poor to be right in the sight of Allah. But what makes us right is our intentions, is the way we deal with what we have and who we are. And that in the Islamic tradition here, the only thing that we need to understand is that these means and these objectives are based on an understanding that is sometimes missing in our alternative economic system, which I don't really understand sometimes. That is what is very alternative in the system that we are proposing. Question mark to start the discussion. Wallahu a'lam.